I'm Bella, and this is Workstream by Partners, a show where we talk with industry leaders and experts about pressing themes and topics in business and beyond. Today, we welcome our guest, Alex Baloga, President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Food Merchants Association. Alex, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I want to begin by asking you, what has been the most challenging aspect of your leadership position?
I think the most difficult part of the position, as with any organization where you're dealing with a lot of different companies, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different businesses, is trying to get consensus on issues. That's probably the most challenging part of the job. We have almost 1,000 companies that are members of PFMA. They operate in different spaces: gaming, lottery, retail, wholesale, and consumer packaged goods companies. So getting that consensus on different issues can sometimes be challenging. That's probably a daily challenge that I usually have to deal with. That's probably the most difficult thing.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. So I know the PFMA's mission is to ensure independent, community-focused retailers and wholesalers the opportunity to succeed and better serve the consumer through its policies, advocacy, programs, and services. How has your ability to serve been impacted due to COVID-19, and what steps have you taken to adapt?
Well, we're all working like everybody else. I think we're all working remotely in this space. Folks that are in these industries are now, trying to do everything remotely, and I think we're in the same boat. So that's been a bit of a challenge. But for us, it's really just continuing to try to provide those benefits and services that we've been providing to our members. Advocacy is a huge part of what we do, working with different governments and elected officials. So that's really what we're focusing on. And I think we're still able to do that even at a remote location. We have some challenges. We operate a few business subsidiaries, so that's been challenging, trying to do that remotely. But it's really just adapting to that remote setting and still trying to provide the benefits and services that we usually provide. That's been really kind of the challenge for us.
Got it. Thank you. So what aspect of the food supply chain do you feel is the most vulnerable right now, and why?
I think right now it is the kind of the meat industry is really the most vulnerable. In the beginning, it was paper goods, it was hand sanitizer, it was those kind of household items. But now it's really the meat supply, and that's just a product of the infections that we're seeing at the plants. And those are being addressed, obviously, but some of these facilities will produce, 5% of the overall supply of the whole country. So it's really a massive disruption when some of these plants close down, which happened a couple of weeks. So that's really the most vulnerable aspect at this point. Everything else is holding pretty firm and holding pretty steady. But you've had some disruptions with paper products and household products, and now with meat. It's really just a matter of how long this goes on and in what fashion. I think as things open up and there's more options for people, that lessens the, strain on the supply chain, so to speak. So the more options there are, because usually, and people I don't think realize this, but about half of the meals are consumed outside of a traditional food setting, a food retail setting. So it could be a restaurant, it could be a Little League game, it could be a concert. So that once those things open up and there's less strain, then you'll see that distribution system kick in, and those products really just aren't flowing to those places, and that will open things up a little bit. Demand will drop at the traditional retail stores, and I think you'll see less of a strain on the supply chain than there's been.
Got it. Wow. What would you say has been the greatest impact of COVID-19 on retail? Would it still be the meat industry, or would it be something else?
On retail, it's just been the sheer number of customers, just the demand. Like I said, you now have half of the people that usually are buying things elsewhere all coming at the same time to the same place and buying the same things. People that, wouldn't grocery shop even maybe once a week are now going regularly. People that would eat out most nights, and maybe if you're in a big city, you might not go at all. So you're getting your food delivered, or you're going and shopping at the local corner store, maybe a couple times a week, buying food here and there. You would be going out to eat, and now you're going to the store like everybody else. So it's really, that's been the biggest challenge, is you just have everybody going to the same place. And it's just a product of the situation we're all in. There's nothing that can really be done about it, but that's been the biggest challenge. And in the beginning, it was really pretty severe. There was, buying and hoarding, and those things have subsided a little bit. But the description that I've been giving is essentially, it was like Super Bowl Sunday with a snowstorm attached to it. So that was basically equivalent, if you can imagine. So
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
yeah.
So I think it's safe to assume that the post-pandemic world will be very different from what we knew before. What do you think that shift will mean for retailers in the US?
I think what you'll see is a lot more online. You're already seeing that. We're seeing a lot of the small retailers that are now going to online sales. They're going to curbside. They're using a lot more apps. You're seeing people that didn't have any of the app-based ordering. Now you can, grab and go, so to speak. I think you're going to see more of that. But I do think at some point, we will see, and, people are already obviously in our stores, our members' stores anyway. But I do think people especially when you're talking about food and beverages and kind of household items, I think people like to go see it. And, it's sort of unheard of now when you think about COVID, but they like to touch it. They like to feel it. It takes on a whole new meaning now, of course, right? You never would have thought of it otherwise. But I think at some point that will become the norm again. At least that's my feeling. I tend to be an optimist. So I think we will get back to that. It might take some time, but you're starting to see that in Europe and other places. They're back in the markets. They're, doing some of the things they would normally do, albeit with masks and distancing and all of those things. But I think the biggest change will just be more of a focus from the smaller and independent retailers doing more of the online and the curbside that the big retailers were starting to do anyway because of the infiltration of Amazon and other competitors. So I think there's going to be the bigger change. And you might see some smaller size stores, which were already starting to pop up in the urban settings where you were seeing these sort of more market sized or market type stores from the bigger chains. So that could be a product of it as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
My final question has to do with the war on talent post-COVID-19. With industries reopening their doors, the issue of retaining valuable talent is a big concern for retail operators. What are some HR strategies or advice that you could offer for our viewers that may be helpful for the days that lie ahead?
I think with anything with retail or with tech or with any kind of industry, I think the most important thing is transparency and honesty with your employees. I think treating people well always results in better productivity and in better employees and better results overall. So I think our members really have focused on their employees even more so given the circumstances. That's always a top focus, is retaining and bringing in talent, treating people well. At the end of the day, if you treat people well, they want to work for you, they want to work hard. And I think our folks have really made that a focal point of their operations. And you see that with the retail industry is always ahead, I think, of every other industry. It's the most competitive industry in the world. 100 years ago, who were the top companies? I don't know. Woolworths, maybe. Pomeroy's. My grandpa was a manager at Pomeroy's. You may have heard of that chain, or you may not have. But 100 years from now, who knows who's going to be the top retailer? It may not be anyone that we know now. It just is impossible to predict. So you have to always be on the forefront. You're always responding to the customer. And I think part of that is the things that they've been doing, paying their employees more given the circumstances, outfitting the stores, taking all the precautions and the distancing and the health and safety aspects that they've done, providing more flexibility to the workers, all of those things, putting the employee front and center even more so than normal given the circumstance, I think has resulted in very strong performance. I think I'm always proud to represent the food industry. I think it's the greatest industry in the world. I think everybody has a story and a feeling of going to their local grocer or convenience store. And that's a very positive thing for most people. I don't even really have to do anything. I probably shouldn't say that, but it sort of sells itself. And truthfully, it's just a great group of people who are community-based. They do so much in the community to support their local food banks and other endeavors, and they really support their employees. And I think that shows with the performance of people in the stores. And the customers have responded as well. I think it's important to note that the vast majority of people are really doing their part and being supportive and helpful. And I hope that continues after all this is over, because I think it's really shown us what's important at the end of the day. So we're thankful for our members and for what they do. And I think that's going to be kind of number one in keeping people at your business, is just treating them well. It sounds sort of cliche, but it's really what works at the end of the day.
It's true. It's true. That's great advice. Thank you so much, Alex.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Appreciate it.
For those of you who are new to WorkStream, we are the hiring platform of choice for non-desk employers, trusted by over 5,000 hiring managers to automate and streamline job postings, scheduling, and employee onboarding. To learn more about us, head over to workstream.us, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of WorkStream by Partners.